In this short video, I'm going to give a brief overview of the feet and how important it is for us to stand properly and the implications of when we don't stand properly. So the foot is made of lots and lots and lots of tiny bones. So although our feet feel very stiff and tight, there is the ability to have quite a bit of flexibility within the feet themselves. It's the way we begin to use them. It's the way we develop our tendons and our muscles and our practice of walking and standing. And some of that is learned behavior. Some of it is more just what we do when we first start walking. And unless we are corrected or shown a different way, it just becomes the way we walk, and we accept that. It's not until we start to get problems that we start to question maybe how we walk or what's going on. And there's an awful lot we can do to alleviate poor circulation, pain in the joint of the feet, the ankle, but also that moves up into the knees, the hips, and into the shoulders. And we'll have a look at that in a second. So with our feet, the way we stand like this, we want to have this nice alignment. Now, a lot of people let their ankles drop, they come in, and we'll look at that on my big one in a second. But the arch, which is supposed to be there and quite happily, a lot of people's has collapsed. And you can see even by letting that collapse like that, we don't really think that's a good idea. So we compensate naturally as we would, because we're not really aware we've done that. So we twist this here and we end up with this twisted foot, which is creating all sorts of compression and potential problems through here, through the Achilles, and then all the way up through into the knees. Now, the arch should be there for everyone, but the size of the arch is different for everybody. Some people have a very high arch, some people have a very low arch, but we're not really talking about what we can see. What we're actually should be talking about is, are we using the muscles and tendons in our feet? And I'll give a demonstration of that in a moment. And we should all have that arch, and the weight should really of our feet be somewhere about here. Now, when we walk with our feet outwards, and again, we'll look at that in a second, but when we walk with our feet outwards, what actually happens is we start to use this bone here as our big toe, because we start to do this with our feet. This becomes how we walk forward, and that pushes this toe over here. And in time, that pushes all the other toes over. And then this big toe here becomes the dominant toe. And we start to see bumps that twists the feet. This can, with a lot of irritation, become a bunion. I know there are some people who go and have operations to have that sort of bone shaved, but if they don't correct how they walk, then that is just a problem that's going to recur in a different way and continue to recur. We have to start changing the way we walk. And I've worked with many people over the years in my clinic who come with huge bunions, really bent feet. And when they start to learn how to hold their feet better, that starts to alleviate. Once you've got extra bone growth, there isn't always a lot we can do about that, but there are things, there are holistic ways that that can be reduced, and perhaps some people have to resort to having some kind of surgical intervention, but really they need to get their feet straight first. So looking very briefly at my skeleton here, when we stand, we want to stand like this with our feet nice and parallel, and that means the inside of the feet there nice and straight with the inside of this foot here. It's very common to see people standing out like this or in like this, knees in like this, knees in like this. These are common ways that people stand, but they're not necessarily correct. We hear the terms, oh, I've got bow legs. Now, if for some sad reason that these bones, and perhaps these bones here, through birth defect or malnutrition or disease, we end up with curved bones in some way, then that is bow legs. It's the bones that have curved. If your bones appear to be, no, don't like the word normal, but if we're going to use that word, it's pretty standard, reasonably straight, we'll use instead, then what you've done is you have learned a pattern of standing and walking and moving, which is not harmonious to the way the body structure is. And it's the tissue, the tendons and the muscles that you have used to create either the bow or this knee with rolled in ankles and dropped feet. We can all strengthen our feet, and we'll do a little exercise in a second to help with that. So if you can see from here, when I turn, even if I turn one foot out, we'll just look at this side, you can't look at everything at once. If I turn this foot out like this, you can see how it's twisted the knee. And then that's also twisted through to the hip. Can you see it moving in the hip there? And when that pulls the hip back, what it can do is pull back through the pelvis here. And if we're not standing correctly through the middle, and that is a whole other video, if we're not standing correctly through here, what it can do is it can trap the nerve ends here. And these yellow little bits of plastic here represent nerves that come out here and then travel down the different parts of the leg and around the hip. And these are your sciatic nerves. So a lot of sciatica can be caused potentially by standing and moving incorrectly, but it's about this trapping and closing in of the nerve endings in here. So how we actually stand on our feet is important. A balance, fall prevention, the prevention of knee and hip replacements, it all comes from how we stand on our feet. So even if you've been unlucky enough to have had to have a knee or a hip replaced, how are you walking through your feet? Have you changed the way you walk? And we have to consciously think about that. So in the scenario when I was showing with the foot before, when we turn the foot out, then the big toe gets pushed over and the second bone becomes our big toe. And that's when we get that twisting out. When we don't use the arches properly, they collapse in like that. Oh, and then hopefully that doesn't happen and your leg doesn't fall off, but who knows? So I'm going to show you now, and I'll just take him down because he'll fall off. So I'm going to look now at something you can do for yourself to look at your own feet. And it's nice to get in front of the mirror and look. When we sit, we want to sit with our hips, knees, and feet in a line. If your ankles collapse in and your knees collapse in, then it's very difficult for you to start to exercise to that or learn to move that when you're standing up. I'm standing with my feet out and my knees in, and I'm asking those weak muscles to change that, to change all of that behavior. That is a big ask. And that's probably going to be too much for your body and perhaps could create more injury. We have to do little and often. So the best way to start is sitting down. And when we're sitting down, it means that there's no real weight on the feet. So we can start to move the muscles and the tendons in the knees and the feet very gradually without that weight being on them to reduce the potential of the risk of damage. So first thing is, are your feet parallel? Do you bring your feet in? Do you cross them? Do you sit like this, this? That's the first thing. Can we get the knees from the hips down over the feet? Now, if you've always had your knees collapsing in, you'll find that's quite challenging. But simply by doing little and often, you will start to strengthen the tendons and muscles into the correct alignment. So maybe when you sit down and have your meals, this is how you should sit. If you're sitting at your desk, this is how you should sit. And it's make it a practice sitting correctly. Now, after maybe a count of 10, these muscles at the beginning are going to be unhappy. That might be too much for them, counting to 10. So put your body in the right position, count to 10, and then let it go. And just get on with your day. And then maybe an hour later, do it again, count to 10, let it go. So if you were able to set an alarm, say, on a phone or a computer to beep at you every hour, and every hour you adjusted how you sat and counted to 10 and then got on with your work, you would slowly start to change the muscle structure and the brain patterns of how to sit gradually and slowly. The first 2 weeks are the hardest. After that, it becomes easier, your body gets easier, and you get used to doing it. So persevere for 2 weeks, get a real focus, and you'll see a difference. But it isn't only about having your knees in line with your feet. It's about bringing them in from this maybe splayed position into a forward-facing position. If you've always with your feet out and perhaps with your arches dropped, then you will have to do it slowly. From here, a little bit, a week later, a little bit more, who knows, a month later, a little bit more, and maybe after 6 months or so, maybe sooner, maybe longer, you'll find this is very comfortable. And when you twist your feet out, you'll feel how horrible it is on your ankles, your knees, and your hips and back. So I've not talked about using the muscles in the feet. I've not talked about using the big toe and the big toes being bent. That's quite a lot to take in as well. But what I will suggest is as you bring your feet in and round, start to just perhaps massage your big toe. You can massage all of your foot by using the other foot. Get a nice bit of loosening going on. Maybe have a nice foot massage. Soak your feet in the bath or in a nice bowl of water with some nice salts in it or some nice bubble bath in it to ease your feet. And then slowly start to move them, get them nice and flexible. And that's a good start. And then you can start to, little bit at a time, encouraging the big toe to move. And it might be that you need to get a tiny bit of cotton wool, a tiny bit, and just pop it in your toes while you're sitting having a meal, or maybe when you've just got out of a bath, just for 5 minutes. No more, leave it a bit, and then maybe 5 minutes later. Ease your body gently. And if something feels too much, usually it is. But I can tell you, with a little bit of personal tuition, perhaps with your own feet, I have had huge success with many people with really badly shaped feet, very badly shaped bunions, lots of pain in their feet. And within 2 weeks, there is a huge difference. And then within a year, their feet look like they virtually should be, with maybe some of the echoes, remnants of where they were, because we carry all the history of our life with us. We're all unique and we're all wonderful in our imperfections. So that's really just a brief starting video about posture and alignment, and it really does start with the feet. Because anyone who stands slightly out, collapsed knees perhaps, or slightly bored, it can come all the way up into the neck and into the head, shoulder pain, neck pain. Some of that then moves forward into what is known as maybe a dowager's hump back. And again, these are all different videos. But if you're working on anything up here and you haven't looked at the feet, then you're just putting a plaster over the problem. Go to the feet, start at the bottom, and we work up through the body into the middle. And there's a way to hold the body, which is the correct way, which we're not really taught. We should never be forcing the shoulders back, should never be lifting the chin. Again, there's a lot of information, which really much longer video than this. This was just to get you started. Start at the feet. And I hope you have lots of success. Get in touch if you'd like to share your success with me. Ask me any questions. And thank you very much. Hope you found that helpful.